Hey guys, this is Pat and Heidi from Rain Country Homestead.
God is good
all the time. And this is part 5 of a series on difficult subjects for prepping for difficult times. And I mean, not all subjects are necessarily difficult, but it's things that we should revisit from time to time if you think that times could get tough on a personal level or a global level for natural disasters and man-made disasters. So we wanted to talk today about security, and that's a pretty difficult subject this day and age, as we believe in the Second Amendment, we believe in the Constitution of the United States, and we don't think that should be messed with. And I think people are afraid to talk about this particular subject. Some groups will say that guns kill, but it's people. It's the hearts of men.
Yep.
And those are
Wicked
just
hearts of men.
tools. And in a free society, we want to put it out there, that tools are necessary.
Yep.
Because if you don't have the proper tools, then other people may have the proper tools that will mean you harm. And so you need to really think deeply about, beyond what you're being taught through the media, beyond what you're being taught in the schools. These things are really important. Real time, real events. Think about Katrina. Think about just some of the natural disasters that we've had in the past. Was that Rodney King incident?
Yep, the LA riots.
LA riots. And that was just people getting angry.
Right. It had nothing to do with a major catastrophe, people not having access to food or water or anything else like that.
Yeah,
or power.
People had to defend themselves. And if they didn't have the proper tools to defend themselves, then they would have been looted just like a lot of other people.
Yep. There were many shop owners that made sure that they were heavily armed,
prepared
to defend their own property.
Right. So you have Katrina. There's a lot of heinous things that went on that most people haven't heard of.
Yep.
And I've talked to people firsthand, people that went down there to help, and they've seen some pretty heinous things. So again, something to really consider. And these were just natural disasters. They were just pinpointed locations.
And localized, yeah.
Localized problems. A lot of people are opportunists. And if globally we have a problem, people around you or yourself may become seriously debased. We have a book here that we like, and we actually know the author, Tyler Woods, and his wife, Terry. We actually met up with them once and really enjoy their company.
Yes, it was wonderful.
Enjoy their friendship. They call us from time to time. We have some long talks. We solve all the world's problems when we have those visits. He actually has, I think it's 3 books that he has out. Very knowledgeable retired pastor, and I still think he's a pastor.
Yeah, he's actually doing some Bible studies in the morning. It would be 7:30 our time, which is Pacific Standard Time, so 9:30 Central. You can figure it out from there. But yeah.
So if you're interested in finding somebody out there who's a pastor, who is a preparedness type guy, he's your man.
Yeah. So I'll put a link to his channel down below, so you can check out his studies, and we try to make it in there occasionally when we can.
So Heidi's going to share some things out of the book that's hits right on home, makes sense. It's down to earth thinking.
Right.
It's not fluffy eye in the sky. God's going to save us every second of the day. The hearts of men are all good. It's none of that kind of nonsense.
Right.
It's just some real things. So we're talking again today about security and
And yes, we have Tyler's permission to do this.
right.
Okay, so the actual chapter name is Firearms. So I'm just going to read a few paragraphs here and there. If you want to read the rest of it, though, you're going to have to buy the book. I'll put a link to it in the description box down below. And so that helps us both out. It helps out Tyler and it helps out us.
And I want to preface this also that the right to bear arms is something that doesn't mean that you just have a single shot musket
Right.
used to collect or harvest animals.
Yep. That's not even what it
They
was
were
written for.
meant to make sure that the government fears you and you not the government.
Right.
I believe that that has taken a turn.
Right.
And we all fear the government. We fear not paying our taxes, all these different things. So
It's pretty clear. If you read the Second Amendment, the whole thing, it's not just the right to bear arms. You have to read the whole thing to
Right, and
understand it.
understand it.
There are certain groups that want to cut off the rest of it and what it says and just say, yeah, and make up whatever they want.
it's not for sports events,
Right.
you know, shooting
It's not just for
traps.
fun.
It's these tools were put in place, and the right to those tools were put in place for you to be able to protect you
And your
your
rights.
family.
The rest
and
of your
also
rights.
on the side to harvest meat.
Right. Okay, so let's go ahead and read these chapters out of here.
I'll get
So-
off my soapbox and let Mama speak now.
Civilization affords the luxury of not having to assume complete responsibility for everything. Meat comes from the market after the animals are raised, slaughtered, butchered, and wrapped. Produce is farmed, harvested, transported, and displayed for us. Fire departments stand ready to drive trucks that cost more than our home and help to put out our fires. Police patrol our neighborhoods to keep us safe from those who won't play by the rules. For thin spots in our civilization where those systems prove inadequate, we may raise our own food, install smoke detectors and fire extinguishers, and employ security devices and personal firearms. If civilization as we know it were to collapse, the full burden of its services falls upon the individual. Mike Arnold of Staying Alive Incorporated puts it this way: the reason I carry a gun is because they are easier to carry than a policeman.
Amen.
Right. So,
You know, policemen are usually, and nothing against, there's a lot, the law enforcement is there, it's a good thing.
yep.
But
we
if
need 'em.
you're expecting them to bail you out of trouble when trouble is usually instamatic and automatic and at the moment, a lot of times, you know, a perfectly good person can become a criminal just over a few seconds of
Right.
of fits or an emergency. Instamatic decision making can turn a good person into a bad person real quick, and
Right.
and a police officer's not going to be standing right there
Yep, there's not
in
one
order
on
to
every
say
corner.
now come here and you know
Oh.
get away from the situation. They're usually there to clean up the mess,
Yep.
and as fast as they are, if they get a call, then they will be at best minutes away. You know, if they happen to be in the neighborhood, they might be 5 minutes away.
Right.
But typically, they're on the other side of town. Dispatch has to give them
Mm-hmm.
a call. Somebody has to call dispatch.
Right.
Then they have to figure out where you live and what the situation is. So
So when
you've got-
seconds count, they're only minutes away.
Right. Yeah. So that's
Think
what
about that.
that's what's being said here is that you know, you can't pack a policeman around with you. Usually they're there to assess the damages and clean up the mess.
Right. And in a major catastrophe, they're just not going to be there anyway because they're
Yeah,
going to
they-
be taking care of their own families.
Right. They got
'Cause-
their own kids, they got
Yep.
their own wife, they got
Right.
their own
And I
things
don't
they
blame
got
'em.
to protect.
Right. That's the way it is.
Yep.
So you have to you have to realize that. So who's going to protect you when they come knocking. I know a lot of people think that they'll just take in anyone and let in everyone and take care of everyone. I appreciate the faith, but it's really unrealistic, because when you see how ugly people will get now when times are relatively good, and we see it all the time over somebody passing somebody, or
Road rage.
like I said, the LA riots, how ugly people got over that. And not to say that wasn't a serious situation, but it wasn't as serious as what we're looking at, a global collapse, or, you know what, even just a national. If you have a major grid down situation of any kind, it's going to get ugly, and people will do what they can. Everybody has potential of being a murderer at that point, to take what they can to feed themselves and their family.
Desperate times bring on desperate measures and brings out the ugliness in all of us. So
Security is incredibly important. And obviously, as individuals, you're going to have to talk about it and decide, what are you going to do? And I mean, obviously, we're kind of going into some issues that people are going to find, you know, wow, this is a real moral issue. Yes, it is. And, but what's more moral? Allowing people to kill you, your family, your children, your grandchildren, to take what you have, or to defend your family and yourself, your babies, your grandbabies. That's what Scripture tells us to do.
right.
So let's move on to this next section I wanted to read. So the reality of social collapse is that without our infrastructure of police, fire, rescue, 911 operators, utility, power, and water systems, hospitals, and food and fuel distribution, millions of people will die, and there is nothing we can do to prevent it. Your home and food store is your lifeboat for the members of your family. Perhaps additional stores can be made for a select few others, but accepting one more person than you have stores to feed could result in the loss of everyone that your lifeboat was designed to save.
Right.
That wording right there, just bam.
You put so many people in a lifeboat and it's going to sink, so that's going to be counterproductive or counterintuitive for what the lifeboat was designed for. It can only hold so many people, and so if you have an open door policy, that's fine and that's great, but the chance of your survival in a real serious situation is going to be minimized greatly.
Right.
So,
Or non-existent.
Great analogy here.
Depending on the situation.
Yeah.
So I'm going to skip ahead to another part here.
And for people who say, real quickly, Heidi,
Go ahead.
If people say, what would Jesus do? And if people say, and again, I respect that, but I've thought about this long and hard. But let me ask you this question. Of all the 12 disciples that you had out there, how many of them got martyred for their faith?
Most of them.
Some food for thought.
And what would Jesus do? Well, Jesus told them if they didn't have a sword, they needed to sell a cloak and buy one.
So, yeah.
Jesus took a whip into the temple and started whooping on people.
Driving them out of the money changers.
Jesus/God shut the ark door after only allowing in 8 people and did not open it again to save those that were knocking to come in when those flood waters rose.
And the 5 virgins.
You got to take God in his full context. Okay, yes, God is a God of love, but he's also a God of justice and judgment.
I think a good balance is that, just because I believe in the right to bear arms doesn't mean I'm going to go wield a pistol or a rifle or an automatic weapon around. It just means, and I have no intentions in harming anybody.
Right.
But as a very last resort, I will protect my wife and kids. And I think inside, if you really consider the subject seriously and deep enough, I think inside you probably have that same drive in you.
I think most people do, and I think if they can't recognize it, then they're trying to deny what's within them. So Some people will throw the accusatory statement that, I can't believe you do that just to protect your hordes. It's not about protecting my hordes, it's about protecting my family. And you would do the same if your family's life was in danger. Or even if it's just you, your own life.
Yeah, when you stop and think about
Most
it.
likely.
What are the life-giving sustenance that go along with protection or security? Food, water, shelter, air. All these things that are very important to us are life-sustaining elements. You want to protect those too because you're trying to protect your family.
Let me read this last piece here. Ruthless people will band together to survive by acts of atrocity. That will happen. It's been proven time and time again. It's not just a science fiction movie.
Look at your history.
It may become necessary to take human life to protect yourself and your family. Tough topics, really, really hard to think about, and we pray we never have to do that. I have not mentioned anything about personal firearms yet. That's because the best way to practice self-defense is to not have to use any. Prepare to not be there when trouble comes. In real gun battles, people get hurt on both sides and people die. Both sides lose. No matter how well you are protected, armed, and organized, a lucky shot can find its mark. All said, tactical defense is still necessary. So I like that because that throws that realism on the other side too. So we think about the importance of defending ourselves and having the means to defend ourselves and practicing to defend ourselves, but also trying to get ourselves in a situation where we don't have to use that.
Right. Hopefully it never has to come to that,
And I believe going back to our last, oh, by the way, if you're new, again, he did state this is part 5. I recommend you go back and watch the first video all the way through so you can see all the topics. I recommend you watch all these and see the series of events because this started out as just one video. But then it brought up a bunch of these other topics. So going back to the one just before this one, I think it's the one just before this, when we talked about community. This is one of those areas where building a community of people that where you're going to work together and also defend each other, I think is really, really important because it's going to really be hard to defend your own little tiny family. Assume, if there's just a few of you, if that's it, because when they come, they're going to be, they meaning the bad guys, the people that want what you have. They're going to come bearing arms. They're going to come with weapons of some sort, and they're going to come in hordes. And you need to have, the greater size your community is, the more will be there to help defend you, your family, their family, and so on. So again, I'm going to state this again. This is not about protecting our hordes. It's about protecting ourselves and our family.
And one thing I want to point out, sometimes we get ourselves in our little cubicle and we say, well, we got this, we're going to do this, and we're going to protect ourselves from this, that, and the other thing. You also have to realize that you're going to have intelligent people, intelligent groups of people that are going to come equally as armed or better off armed or better trained than you are. So it's really important not just to get tools for protection, but also think about where the weak links are in your property, in your group, and try to plan for those things, because the element of surprise is a very powerful thing. Even if you have somebody, we're talking worst case scenario.
Yep.
And we're not thinking that, the zombie apocalypse is going to happen tomorrow. We're not trying to fearmonger,
Nope.
but we are realistic.
Right.
Again, we believe the Bible. We believe that what Revelation says is true, and we may or may not be in the end days. It certainly looks like it is. However, each day we're getting closer, right? If for those who believe. those who don't believe or agnostic or whatever, you're still more than welcome to be here. If you don't believe this, the religious part of things, that's just who we are. But hopefully we have some good information in here that you're welcome to come in and participate in. Those who are new here, and go back and watch those videos, go back and look at the comments, because there's a lot of people who have actually been through tight spots, through disasters, hurricanes, natural events that are very serious that cause them to start preparing. And again, folks, this is just an insurance policy.
Yep.
It's just another
Right.
insurance policy. It's a
Absolutely.
real, tangible, hands-on insurance policy that pays out.
Yeah. Right.
You know, even if you get all this food, you get 10 years worth of food built up and you never use it, well, it's invested. You know, at least you or somebody else can benefit from it.
Yeah, sometimes,
If you
yeah.
have a tight month, at least you can draw from it.
Right.
So that also has, everything to do with security. You can have fun. If you like to, target practice or whatever, that's still legal in this world, in
So
this
far.
country. So anyhow, we hope you guys benefit from this. And again, this is 11th Hour Preparedness from Tyler
Right.
Woods.
Let's do it again.
And he's got other books. You can get those on Amazon. Or if you buy it through our Amazon link, that helps us out and
Right.
also helps Tyler out.
Right. Yeah.
If you like what you heard in the book, consider getting yourself a copy.
Before we totally close this out, I want to kind of go back to the idea that, again, we're just touching on these tough topics because we thought it would be a good idea, because they started coming up and more people have been seeming to want to talk about it. And
Right.
a lot of times it's something that people are afraid to talk about because it is difficult. And I keep putting this one off. I've been putting most of these videos off because I haven't really wanted to talk about it. But I do believe it's important that we do this, that we have this open discussion. But when it comes right down to it, just so you guys know where we're at, our main purpose of preparing is to get us through whatever life throws our way, even if it only affects the two of us. And that's many times that has been a great place to be, because we've done that, or we've been able to help some other family members in need when their needs came up. And I hope that's all we ever have to do. And I love the security of being where we're at, having the security of having some backup food stores and being ahead on bills and being out of debt and all of these things. It's a peace of mind.
Sure.
And that's what we like about it best. And, I still don't think we're going to see anything so major in our personal lifetime, but it could still happen. As Patrick said, we're realistic enough to realize it could happen. Though you guys will see this probably 3 or 4 weeks after we record it. There's some things going on right now in the world that are a little disconcerting, and we could see it possibly leading into something bigger and far worse. But we've seen these kind of things come and go all the time, and it never turned into anything major. So again, we're not about fear mongering. And another thing I wanted to touch on that he said, where he was talking about the insurance policy. So if you put up 10 years worth of food or 2 years worth of food and you never really need to use it, you might think, well, isn't that a waste of money? Well, how much money are you throwing away every year on insurance for your house, your cars, and your health that you never actually use? I mean, probably a lot more people use their health insurance than they do their house insurance. Or even when it comes up where you need to use it, and then your insurance is lame and they won't help you out anyway.
Right.
What a big waste of money. I would rather take that money and put it in something tangible and real that will be there when I do need it, even if I ever never need it. That money was still better spent doing that.
Right.
Than giving it to a bunch of lame insurance companies. And yes, I'm irritated.
Don't get her mad. Then I have to deal with it.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and close this out. So please put your comments down below and be respectful and kind. If you're going to be rude and accusatory, it's very likely your comment may go,
Right.
depending on how you approach it. I'm not talking about you sharing your opinion if it's opposite of ours. That's fine. But if you're going to be rude, you're out of here.
Right.
So-
I wouldn't say anybody's right or wrong. It's
Right.
just what we believe. And so just because you have an opinion that differs from us, you're more than welcome to state that.
Right.
But if you do
right.
it in a disrespectful manner, you're a goner.
Yeah. And we've had many people come in that have said things respectfully
Right.
that they didn't agree, and I appreciated their input and their interaction,
Right.
especially on these kind of issues. I think they're important, and I think it's important that everybody, even if they don't agree, see this kind of interaction and maybe even rethink their own position. Make them reevaluate where they stand, and whether they change it or not is up to them, but at least I think it's good that we have that food for thought from both sides of an issue anytime.
Well, we've gone on long enough. We hope you enjoyed this video and it gives you some things to think about.
Thanks for watching,
Take care.
and God bless.